The creek bed is dry and unforgiving, as rounds dig into sand and stone around a Navy SEAL platoon. Lieutenant Daniel Rhodes keeps the element tight, while 3 sides spit fire and a steep bank seals the rear. 2 operators are wounded but stable under buddy aid. And the team holds sectors with measured bursts. Low ceilings cancel close air support, and the quick reaction force is still 30 minutes out. Up in the canopy, Staff Sergeant Erin Walker settles into a hidden perch about 60 feet above the ground. She has spent days building a simple range card, tagging landmarks, and finding clean shoot-through lanes that open to roughly 600 to 700 meters. A kestrel reading, a wind note on the dope card, and a steady platform turn the chaos below into angles and timing. Elevation turns good cover on the ground into exposed shapes in narrow gaps. Her kit is simple and exact. A Barrett M107 with a 10-round magazine rides the rest for long lanes and hard targets. The M110 SASS sits ready for faster follow-on shots inside mid-range. An M4A1 hangs slung for close defense. Safety on. Muzzle controlled. Nothing casual. Her tasking says observe and report unless defending friendly forces becomes required. The creek bed tells her the time for watching is over. She keys the task force net, identifies as Reaper 6, authenticates, and addresses Neptune 1 Actual with a request to engage high-priority targets, beginning with the machine guns. The answer comes back clear and professional. Authorization granted. Walker reads back the tasking, settles into a natural respiratory pause, and takes up the first hold. Impact and effect will confirm the call. The reticle steadies on the gun that is cutting the platoon to pieces, and the world narrows to a single clean lane. The jungle is broken and uneven, a mix of tall trunks, thick understory, and sudden gaps where wind and slope have thinned the leaves. A dry creek bed cuts the ground into banks and bends that trap sound and funnel movement. From a stable perch about 60 feet up, Staff Sergeant Erin Walker has pre-ranged landmarks and marked real shoot-through lanes that open to roughly 600 to 700 meters. She knows which gaps hold a clean line and which angles choke into leaves. Weather sits low and stubborn, with ceilings and visibility that keep aircraft off the deck. Close air support cannot check in until the sky lifts, and that is not now. The quick reaction force is still 30 minutes out because distance, terrain, and deconfliction slow wheels and rotors. The platoon holds while time stays heavy and loud. Walker carries tools that match the problem. A Barrett M107 with 10-round magazines covers long lanes and hard targets. An M110 SASS waits for faster follow-up shots between 300 and 600 meters. An M4A1 rides slung for close defense, used in short controlled bursts. She works with a rangefinder, a kestrel or its equivalent, a simple dope card, and a climbing kit with harness and lanyards. Her tasking is observe and report, with engagement justified when defending friendly forces becomes necessary. Lieutenant Daniel Rhodes serves as Neptune 1 Actual on the platoon net, while Walker monitors the task force net by plan. Elevation opens angles that ground cover cannot block, turning logs and rocks into thin edges when viewed from above. During 2 days of observation, she built a simple range card, checked wind in different parts of the canopy, and learned the rhythm of the gaps, so that when she acts, the rifle and the lanes agree. Walker breathes down to a steady rhythm on the platform she built into the tree. She runs a quick magazine check on the M107, confirms 10 seated with 1 stage to feed, and presses the mag home. The dope card sits under a band on the stock, and her finger traces the holds for 600 and 680 as the kestrel reading settles. She aligns the scope to the first clean lane she pre-ranged at the creek bend. She shifts to the task force net with calm brevity. She identifies as Reaper 6 and addresses Neptune 1 Actual for the platoon. The net walks through identity and authentication without drama and without delay. She states her request to engage high-priority targets with the priority of fire as machine guns first, assault leaders forming a push next, and the blocking line that seals the egress last. The clock is the weight in the air. 2 wounded hold on while the platoon trades short bursts and moves inches at a time. Close air support is still grounded by weather, and the quick reaction force remains 30 minutes away. She keeps her voice even and professional as she confirms range. Wind. And effects she expects to deliver from elevation. Authorization comes back clean. She reads it back word for word, with the target order and the limits. She resets elbows and stock weld, exhales to a natural respiratory pause, and lets the sight picture settle until the reticle stops moving. She is not watching a bullet, and never claims to. She is watching for impact and effect, where the first gun is cutting the platoon to pieces. The first machine gun sits at roughly 640 meters behind sandbags and a downed log. Masked from ground level, but open to her elevated angle, Walker settles the semi-automatic Barrett M107 with a 10-round magazine into a steady rest and lets her breath fall flat. The dope card gives her a clean wind call, and she holds center mass where the gunner presents through the gap. She presses the trigger, watches for target effect, and sees the position go slack as bodies drop away from the receiver. She does not linger. The scope moves a hand width to scan for an assistant gunner or anyone reaching into the feed tray. A quick follow-up snaps into the mount and receiver area to deny any reman of the weapon. The .50 BMG can punch through light cover at this distance, but she respects that foliage still steals sightlines and keeps her from forcing shots through leaves. The second gun is on a small rise at about 610 meters with a similar partial mask from the front. She repeats the method without theatrics, checks recoil with a firm shoulder, and recovers her sight picture fast enough to confirm effect. Cadence stays calm and unhurried because the goal is to break suppression, not to race. The gun falls silent, and the rise stops spitting tracer into the creek bed. Her report to Neptune 1 Actual is short and useful. 2 guns, cold, and suppression on the riverbed should drop. Prep abound when the window opens. She runs a fast magazine check on the M107, reseats the mag, and rescans the arcs for a third machine gun. Breathing resets to a natural pause as she builds the next hold. The net is quiet in her ears except for movement calls, and she is already hunting the next problem. The assault element begins to knit itself together in the understory. Fighters closing dispersion and signaling for a final push. Walker finds the assault leader at roughly 670 meters through a pre-ranged gap and waits for the brief pause that always comes before a hand motion. The hold is calm and centered, the wind call already on her dope card, and the shot breaks clean. She watches for impact and effect, then lets the lane go dark as bodies melt back into cover. Foliage denies constant visibility, so she refuses to chase shapes into leaves. Movers cross clean lanes between 600 and 680 meters, and she takes them only when the gap opens. 1 controlled shot at a time with steady cadence. The rhythm is simple and repeatable. Reacquire, confirm, correct, and move on. Suppression drops across the creek bed as fewer rifles can feed the push. Rhodes reads the moment and directs bounding overwatch with pairs moving while others cover. Litter teams lifting the wounded on command, and rear security holding discipline against a rush from the flank. Radio traffic stays concise as she passes effects and lane status, and he answers with movement calls. No dramatics, just work. She clears another mover who tries to sprint a seam and then scans to cold, letting the platoon take ground in short bites. Walker reports Neptune 1 green for a short bound to the north bank and commits to cut the blocking line next, already shifting her angle to the sector that seals the egress. The blocking line sits across the platoon's escape route like a lid. 8 adversaries are spread over roughly 100 meters, tucked into trees and rocks with narrow views into the creek bed. Aaron Walker shifts to that sector and works from left to right, patient on the perch. She engages only when a target exposes during movement or firing. Ranges stay inside 540 to 620 meters, through lanes she pre-ranged the day before. The cadence is short strings with quick reacquire, confirm effect, and shift to the next gap. Foliage denies constant visibility, so she refuses low-probability shots through heavy leaves. She keeps the rifle quiet between opportunities and lets the angles do the work. Her updates to Neptune 1 Actual are concise and timed to action. The line is degrading. A lane to the northwest is beginning to open for 200 meters. Expect a brief window if pressure holds. Lieutenant Daniel Rhodes orders a controlled break contact with smoke if available. Pairs bound while the rest cover. And litter teams manage the wounded with practiced hands. Rear security holds discipline and watches for a rush. The platoon moves in short bites as fire slackens across the line. Walker does not chase every mover. The purpose is to open space for maneuver and keep it open long enough to matter. She clears one more fighter as he leans to scan. Then the lane turns quiet. She reports the lane open, warns of a possible flanking probe to the east based on movement cues, and commits to watch that sector while the platoon makes the first bound. The flanking element slides in from the front right. 10 fighters using broken jungle and short bounds to cut the route. Walker stays on the perch she built and works the range card she prepared the day before. Clean lanes open inside 500 to 700 meters. So she starts with the M107 for the longest angles and hard targets. The goal is disruption, not a tally. And every shot serves movement. She waits for crossings through real gaps and refuses the urge to push rounds through leaves. A miss risks giving away angle and tempo. So she chooses patience over noise. One deliberate hit forces a mover to ground. Another breaks a buddy team as they step into a seam, and a third snaps them into cover where they cannot see the creek bed. She sends a quick update to Neptune 1 Actual that the flanking push is disrupted and that scattered contact may appear on the route in a few minutes. Lieutenant Daniel Rhodes keeps the element moving with bounding overwatch and tight rear security as pressure eases. Walker shifts to single deliberate shots as lanes shorten, and the M110 SASS becomes the better tool for follow-ups inside mid-range. Several adversaries break away and drift back. A few stay down and give up the angle. And the intercept loses its shape. She closes with a clear effects call that the breakup is holding, that several have gone to ground or withdrawn, and that she will watch the front right while the platoon continues the bound toward the planned LZ. Walker checks her remaining 50 BMG and decides the angles are changing. She slides the Barrett off the rest, safes it, and brings the M110 SASS into the pocket where the stock weld feels natural. An adjusted perch gives fresh sightlines across the route. So she updates the range card with quick pencil marks for 300 to 600 meters. The canopy opens in brief breaths. A second or two at a time, she builds a new rhythm around semi-automatic precision and patient timing. Controlled pairs go where lanes open, with short corrections from observed impact rather than hope. The cadence favors effects over speed, so each press earns a mover to ground or a hasty retreat behind a stump that does not cover the angle from above. The creek bed grows quieter because the pursuit loses eyes on the platoon. Her radio update to Neptune 1 Actual is tight and plain. Pursuit elements are fragmenting. She will hold overwatch on the route. The element can continue bounding with rear security tight. She keeps the net clear and returns to glass, scanning the edges where brush shifts in little tells. The goal is to keep distance in the bank, not to count anything. A calm scan finds new movers drifting in the backfield. So she changes magazines on the M110 and resets her hold. Wind and angle get a last look. Then the reticle settles into another gap and waits for movement rather than forcing a shot. If the angle goes cold, she will displace to keep the route covered. Discipline and patience carry the moment. And not a single round is spent on a guess. Traffic on the net reports enemy reinforcements moving toward the planned landing zone. Walker breaks down her hide, reroutes through broken jungle with strict noise discipline, and reaches a low ridge above the clearing. She climbs to a stable perch about 40 feet up on the south side, with clear angles to the north and east. Heart rate settles as she studies approach corridors carved by wind and slope. She updates a simple range card, checks wind with a quick reading, and tucks the kestrel away. The M110 SASS comes forward for initial shots in the 400 to 500 meter lanes. The Barrett M107 stays close in case a hardened position appears. The M4A1 rides slung for close defense with safety on and sling snug. She prioritizes the machine gun that covers the helicopter approach, catches the gunner exposed through a clean gap, and delivers a deliberate shot that stops the position. A second round disables the mount to prevent remanning. Observed through impact rather than spectacle. Riflemen with direct angles on the clearing peek from trees and stumps, and she thins them only when they cross real gaps. She transmits a concise hold for the aircraft until the zone is green, and logs effects as sectors go quiet. Method beats speed. So every shot is built, pressed, and confirmed before she shifts the reticle. Some adversaries duck or run and fine because the mission is to open a window, not chase every mover. The clearing steadies, and she issues an all-clear for the LZ. Wounded first. She holds overwatch on the approaches as aircraft come inbound. Walker finishes the last checks on the clearing, and then catches movement angling in from the east. She drops from the lower perch to the tree line, keeps to shade, and avoids backlighting against the open sky. A pair of threats slips inside roughly 170 to 190 meters. The M4A1 comes up, and she uses short, controlled bursts that stop the advance without spraying rounds across friendly lines of fire. She resets to overwatch immediately, breath steady, and sights back up on the likely approaches. A concise radio update holds the aircraft off until the zone is green, along with a reminder of wind drift over the north edge. Sectors go quiet in order as she works the scan pattern. When the picture is stable, she calls the birds inbound and shifts to cover the routes that can still produce a last rush. Lieutenant Daniel Rhodes brings the platoon into the clearing with order and discipline. Wounded first and rifles outboard. Rotor wash fills the space, and everyone keeps noise discipline while the load plan runs clean. Named teammates slide into positions around Walker for a moment, watching her six while she watches the tree line. The second aircraft settles, and the sequence repeats without wasted motion. She keeps the net tight with short updates and no drama as skids touch and lift in a steady rhythm. Rhodes directs her to board for debrief and accountability once the last casualty is secured. She scans until the final man steps on, and only then moves, climbing in while keeping muzzle awareness and sectors in mind. The aircraft lifts, and she stays on task, eyes outside and mind on safety and process, leaving celebration for later when the count and the gear are squared away. The helicopters settle at the forward operating base, and the team moves with quiet discipline. Wounded go straight to medical, while weapons are safed and gear is checked in. Walker steps off last and clears her sector out of habit. Then follows the platoon inside. The rush of contact fades into the steady rhythm of procedure. In a debrief room, Captain Laura Bennett leads a professional after-action review. Walker walks the room through shot strings and ranges, why each trigger press met the defense of friendly forces standard, and how elevation and lanes shaped effects. S2 records enemy positions, weapons, and movement patterns for follow-on work. The focus stays on facts, timing, and outcomes that enabled the extraction. A medic checks Walker and finds minor scrapes from the climb and the perch. A stabilized wounded SEAL passes by on a litter and offers a quiet thanks without ceremony. And she nods once and steps aside. The command finding is clear after review. The engagement is judged, justified under defense of friendly forces, and paperwork reflects that call. Lieutenant Daniel Rhodes submits an award recommendation that routes up the chain through normal channels. Recognition stays grounded, with no medals on the tarmac. Walker is placed on temporary additional duty attached to SEAL Team 7 within a joint task force for ongoing sniper support. The platoon forms a modest corridor of nods as she exits, respect earned by competence and process. Back at her rack, she wipes down the rifles, updates the dope card, and sets a simple plan for first light. Intelligence traffic filters in over the next days and points to a quiet shift in the northern jungle sector. Patrols find cut trails gone soft, fighting positions left cold, and a few caches abandoned in place. Intercepts suggest an unseen overwatch shaping behavior, rather than folklore or myth. The pullback reads as a plausible reaction to a lopsided fight where elevation turned cover into exposure. Lieutenant Daniel Rhodes meets with Staff Sergeant Aaron Walker and keeps the focus on duty and process. He notes that the real impact was her decision made under orders, backed by training, preparation, and lawful defense of friendly forces. Her temporary additional duty attachment to SEAL Team 7 continues as planned. With tasking scheduled and briefs already building, the tone is steady and respectful, not celebratory. The story closes on a human truth that outlasts the noise. The most important shot is not the longest or the flashiest. It is the one you are willing to take when lives depend on it, and the standard is clear. Viewers are invited to share a moment when preparation met courage in their own lives, with thanks to service members and families offered in simple words rather than slogans. Back in a quiet room, Walker moves through practical work without hurry. She cleans the M107 and the M110, checks mounts for proper torque, and updates dope cards with the latest wind and temperature notes. Climbing lanyards get a fresh inspection, and a simple plan forms for first light at 6:30 a.m. She is ready to return to the field with the same calm resolve that carried her through the day. During the final minute, the screen carries quiet facts while music fades. Barrett M107 and 50 BMG, with 10-round magazines and semi-automatic operation, covered long lanes and hard targets. M110 SASS in 7.62 by 51 mm provided semi-automatic precision inside mid-range. M4A1 was reserved for close defense and fired in short, controlled bursts. Tactics were simple and proven. Prioritize machine guns as high-priority targets to break suppression. Use precision fires to enable break contact by bounds. Interdict any pursuit. And secure the landing zone for aircraft. Effects were confirmed by observation of impact rather than spectacle. Elevation mattered because it opened angles that ground cover at eye level could not block. Staff Sergeant Aaron Walker pre-identified shoot-through lanes, used a range card and wind calls, and built shots only when gaps were clean. Command reviewed the contact afterward and judged the engagement justified under defense of friendly forces within a joint task force. Cross-service support through temporary additional duty attachment is a common practice when capabilities align. Reality remains in play even on a good day. Jungle lines of sight are limited. Foliage can defeat or deflect shots, and patience often beats speed. No scoreboard is needed when teams come home together. Thank you to service members and families for the quiet work that makes that possible.